Hi, I want to tell you about my experiences with the Lord. It's really actually kind of amazing. There was a season that I spent so much time in worship and blessing Israel, and I fell in love with Israel, that the Lord blessed me. And what was so amazing is that the more I worshiped Him, and and I didn't have to go to work because I was married. And so my husband was a worshiper, but he spent a lot of time in bed sleeping because he had diabetes. And so I would just lay down and worship and focus on the love of the Lord. And when I did that, what was absolutely amazing was about 5 years prior, God, when I was desperate for the Lord. 5 years prior to that, I had laid down on my bed. I had fasted for months. And when I mean by months is that I would go like 3 weeks without eating any food and have water. And then I would have like a meal for a day for a week. And then I would fast for another 3 weeks. Because I just was so desperate. And so I almost died. Because I refused to drink water. So that's, so if you're going to fast for a super long time and for 3 months like I did, I got down to like 95 pounds. I don't recommend that. But I should have drank more water, but I was trying to find the Lord. And so when I laid down on the bed, God showed me, like he, he opened up my spiritual eyes in such a way where he had me lay down on the bed and I spread out my arms, and then he showed me somebody coming to lift me up underneath, and his presence to come and lift me up underneath, and that he showed me that I had to go up to who he was and up, and he showed me that I had to rise up, so I had to be carried. And I was joining what I call the air team. He just showed me a pair of like eagle's wings, but in the Bible, because I was really ignorant about the Lord. And so basically, it was like an eagle anointing. And so when you wait upon the Lord, he will renew your strength like the eagles. Well, 5 years later, I didn't know what that meant. I just knew that he was teaching me how to fly, and I didn't understand it. And he showed me that if I didn't get up and fly, I'd end up in hell. And so, and I didn't know how to fly. He just showed me that I had to go to Israel, and I had to go to his throne room. If I didn't make it, I would die. Because he showed me all the darkness in between, and I'm like, ah. And so 5 years later, I didn't know it, but it was my husband that was going to come and pick me up underneath and carry me on eagle's wings to the Lord. That's another story, but that was absolutely phenomenal. And it takes hours. It's like 8 hours in Earth time felt like decades, in the heavenlies, because, 8 hours of intense, worship and being carried by the Lord, it changes your entire life. It feels like millennia. It literally, like, time stops. There is no time. It just doesn't exist. And it feels like decades and years and lifetimes, and depending on what happens. So anyways, when fast forward back to, many years later, when I was laying down with my husband, I learned how to worship and how to find the Lord through his spirit, because he knew the Lord. And it was just the most amazing thing, because I could catch on to his spirit and the worship in his spirit and the living presence of the Lord. I could catch on to that, and I would just soak in that. And then I learned how to fly that way. I learned how to worship that way. And so I would lay down on my bed, and when I was laying there, it was so amazing, because your spirit is so different than your physical body.